Picture this. You've just carefully transplanted your prized tomato seedlings into your garden, visions of juicy red tomatoes dancing in your head. But within hours, maybe even minutes, you notice something alarming. Your once perky plants are now drooping like deflated balloons, their leaves curling inward as if they're trying to hide from the world. Before you panic and assume you've killed your future harvest, take a deep breath. What you're witnessing is completely normal and, more importantly, it's fixable. Why tomato transplanting matters more than you think. Transplanting tomatoes isn't just about moving plants from one container to another, it's about orchestrating a delicate dance between roots, soil, and environment. Think of it as helping your plants make a major life transition. Just like humans moving to a new home, tomatoes need time to adjust to their new surroundings, and sometimes they get a little overwhelmed in the process. The stakes couldn't be higher during this critical phase. A successful transplant sets the foundation for vigorous growth, disease resistance, and ultimately, the abundant harvest you're dreaming of. Conversely, a poorly executed transplant can condemn your plants to a season of struggle, stunted growth, and disappointing yields. The difference between thriving tomato plants and struggling ones often comes down to understanding what happens during those crucial first few days after transplanting. When you transplant tomatoes, you're essentially asking them to rebuild their entire support system from scratch. Their roots, which have been comfortably established in their starter containers, suddenly find themselves in unfamiliar territory. The soil composition is different, the moisture levels have changed, and the entire ecosystem around them has shifted. It's no wonder they sometimes react with what appears to be dramatic stress responses. The root of the issue, honestly, is understanding what's really happening below ground. The secret to successful tomato transplanting lies in knowing that roots are far more fragile and complex than they appear. When you peer into a starter pot, you might see what looks like a simple tangle of white threads, but you're actually looking at one of nature's most sophisticated systems. These delicate structures are responsible for not just anchoring your plant, but also for absorbing water, nutrients, and oxygen from the soil. During transplanting, even the most careful gardener will inevitably cause some degree of root disturbance. Those tiny root hairs that do the heavy lifting of nutrient absorption are incredibly sensitive and can be damaged by something as simple as a change in soil temperature or pH. When these microscopic structures are compromised, your plant's ability to take up water and nutrients is temporarily reduced, leading to the wilting and stress symptoms you're observing. The root ball itself tells a story of adaptation and survival. In its original container, your tomato seedling has grown accustomed to a specific moisture level, soil density, and root space. When you transplant, you're asking it to quickly adapt to potentially different conditions. Some plants handle this transition gracefully, while others need more time and support to adjust. Understanding this fundamental challenge is really the first step toward becoming a master transplanter. Transplant shock, it's really the real culprit behind those droopy leaves. Transplant shock is perhaps the most common reason your newly transplanted tomatoes look like they're having a rough day. This phenomenon occurs when plants experience stress from the sudden change in their environment. Think of it as the plant equivalent of jet lag. Your tomatoes are essentially trying to reset their internal clock to match their new surroundings. The symptoms of transplant shock can be, well, pretty dramatic and alarming. Leaves may wilt severely, even when the soil is adequately moist. Some leaves might curl upward or downward, and the entire plant may appear to lose its vigor overnight. In severe cases, you might even notice some leaf drop, which can send even experienced gardeners into a panic. However, these symptoms are typically temporary and will resolve as the plant adjusts to its new environment. The duration of transplant shock varies depending on several factors, including the size of the plant, the extent of root disturbance, weather conditions, and how well you've prepared the transplant site. Most healthy tomato plants will show signs of recovery within 3 to 7 days, though some may take up to 2 weeks to fully bounce back. During this recovery period, your primary job is to provide consistent, gentle care while avoiding the temptation to overcompensate with excessive watering or fertilizing. When your tomatoes start showing signs of stress, they're essentially communicating with you through their physical appearance. Learning to read these signals is crucial for providing the right type of care. Wilting leaves often indicate that the plant is struggling to maintain adequate water pressure in its cells, which could be due to damaged roots, insufficient water uptake, or environmental stress. Leaf curling presents another important clue about what's happening with your plants. Upward curling, where leaves roll into themselves, often indicates heat stress or excessive light exposure. This is your plant's way of reducing its surface area to minimize water loss through transpiration. Downward curling, on the other hand, might suggest overwatering or root problems that are preventing proper nutrient uptake. Color changes in leaves also provide valuable information. Yellowing leaves might indicate nitrogen deficiency, overwatering, or natural aging of lower leaves as the plant redirects energy to new growth. Purple or reddish tinges often suggest phosphorus deficiency or cold stress. Brown, crispy edges typically point to water stress either from underwatering or from salt buildup in the soil. Water wisdom, is all about the Goldilocks principle of tomato hydration. Getting the watering right after transplanting is perhaps the most critical factor in helping your tomatoes recover from their move. The key here is really finding that sweet spot between too much and too little, what gardeners often call the Goldilocks zone of soil moisture. Too little water and your already stressed plants will struggle even more to establish themselves. Too much water and you risk drowning the roots and creating conditions for fungal diseases. The first watering after transplanting should be thorough but gentle. You want to ensure that water reaches all parts of the root zone without creating waterlogged conditions. A good rule of thumb is to water slowly and deeply, allowing the water to soak into the soil rather than running off the surface. This initial watering helps settle the soil around the roots and eliminates air pockets that could interfere with root growth. In the days following transplanting, monitor soil moisture by inserting your finger about an inch into the soil near the base of the plant. If it feels dry at this depth, it's time to water. If it's still moist, wait another day or two. Remember that newly transplanted tomatoes don't have an extensive root system yet, so they can't access water from deeper soil layers the way established plants can. This means you'll need to water more frequently but with smaller amounts until the roots have had time to spread out and establish themselves. The environment you create for your newly transplanted tomatoes can make the difference between a quick recovery and, prolonged stress. Temperature plays a crucial role in how quickly plants bounce back from transplanting. Ideally, you want to transplant during mild weather conditions, not during a heat wave or when frost is still a possibility. If you must transplant during challenging weather, you'll need to take extra steps to protect your plants. Sunlight exposure is another critical factor to consider. While tomatoes are sun-loving plants, newly transplanted seedlings often benefit from some protection during the hottest part of the day. If your plants are showing signs of severe wilting or leaf curl, consider providing temporary shade during peak sun hours. This can be as simple as using a piece of shade cloth, an old bed sheet, or even strategically placed boards to create temporary shelter. Wind can be particularly stressful for newly transplanted tomatoes. Strong winds increase transpiration rates, forcing plants to lose water faster than their compromised root systems can replace it. If your garden is exposed to strong winds, consider creating temporary windbreaks using stakes and cloth or positioning larger plants to provide natural protection. The way you handle your tomato seedlings during transplanting can significantly impact their recovery time. A lot of gardeners make the mistake of grabbing plants by their stems or leaves, and that can cause internal damage even if there's no visible harm. Instead, always handle seedlings by their root ball or the container they're growing in. This simple change in technique can really prevent unnecessary stress and damage. When removing seedlings from their containers, try to resist the urge to shake off excess soil or untangle roots unless it's absolutely necessary. The soil clinging to the roots actually contains beneficial microorganisms and familiar nutrients that can help ease the transition. If roots are severely pot-bound and circling the container, you can gently tease them apart with your fingers. but just avoid aggressive manipulation that could tear or damage the root system. The timing of your transplanting also matters more than you might think. The best time to transplant is during the cooler parts of the day, early morning or late afternoon. This gives plants time to begin adjusting to their new environment before facing the stress of intense midday sun. If you must transplant during the day, be prepared to provide extra protection and monitoring. Once your tomatoes are in the ground, your focus shifts to providing consistent, gentle care that supports their recovery. This means, resisting the urge to fertilize immediately after transplanting. While it might seem logical to give stressed plants a nutrient boost, fertilizing too soon can actually harm plants that are already dealing with root damage. So, wait at least a week or two before introducing any fertilizer, and when you do, start with a diluted solution. Mulching around your newly transplanted tomatoes provides multiple benefits that support recovery. A layer of organic mulch helps maintain consistent soil moisture, reduces temperature fluctuations around the roots, and suppresses weeds that might compete with your stressed plants for resources. Go ahead and apply mulch in a circle around each plant, but keep it a few inches away from the stem to prevent pest and disease issues. Staking or caging your tomatoes should be done at the time of transplanting or shortly after, while the root system is still establishing. Trying to install support systems later can cause additional root damage and stress. So choose sturdy supports that will accommodate the full size of your mature plants and secure them firmly in the ground to prevent them from shifting or falling over during strong winds. Perhaps the most important advice for dealing with transplant shock is to be patient. It's totally natural to want to see immediate results, but plants really operate on their own timeline. Most tomatoes will begin showing signs of recovery within a week of transplanting, but full recovery can take several weeks. During this time, consistent care is honestly more important than any dramatic interventions. Keep a close eye on your plants without becoming obsessive. Daily observations will help you spot problems early and track progress over time. Look for signs of new growth, improved leaf color, and reduced wilting. Small changes often indicate that your plants are beginning to establish themselves in their new environment. If problems persist beyond, 2 weeks, it may be time to investigate other potential causes. Soil-borne diseases, pest infestations, or nutrient deficiencies can all mimic transplant shock symptoms. Don't hesitate to seek advice from local gardening experts or extension services if you're concerned about your plant's health. Remember that every garden is unique, and what works in one location may need modification in another. Climate, soil type, variety selection, and local growing conditions all influence how your tomatoes respond to transplanting. It's a good idea to keep detailed records of your successes and challenges so you can refine your techniques over time. Transplanting tomatoes successfully is both an art and a science. By understanding the biological processes involved, recognizing stress signals, and providing appropriate care, you can help your plants not just survive, but really thrive in their new environment. The key is to approach transplanting with knowledge, patience, and respect for the complex life processes you're supporting. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Smart Garden for more in-depth gardening insights and practical tips that will transform your garden into a thriving paradise. And hey, share this video with fellow gardeners who might be struggling with transplant shock. Together we can grow stronger, healthier gardens one plant at a time.